Hello, this is a quick do-it-yourself video on how to fix a toilet that stays running. So what I mean by that is you constantly hear water dribbling, and it just never seems to fill up the tank enough to shut off. And the component that controls that is in my hand, and it is a fill valve. And so what happens is the water comes in, this is inside the tank, all of this is inside the tank except for this bottom part that protrudes from the bottom. And the hose, that the cold water line, connects to this bottom of the fitting. Water goes up through the center of this tube. It comes out under there. And then as the water level in the tank rises, this thing is afloat. And this float will rise, and it shuts, it pushes on this lever right here, and it shuts off the valve, and it stops the flow of water. So this thing is vertical. And as the water level comes up, you notice how my thumb rises, and then it shuts off. Well, for some reason, this didn't stop. It stopped working. It didn't work anymore, and it was no longer shutting off the flow, even when the tank was full. So the problem is not a big deal, because here is a drain that goes right into the bowl, and if the water level comes up above that height right there, the water just drains into the bowl, and you'll constantly see, water coming around the rim of the bowl, or you might just see some kind of current if you look down there in the very bottom. However, in the case yesterday, the toilet clogged for some reason, something paper or something, and it actually flowed up and overflowed the bowl and onto the floor. And so it was good that we caught it right away and we shut the valve off. So to get this old fill valve out, it's pretty easy to change. This is the supply line, and there's the bottom of the fill valve. I just dropped it in the toilet. There was a lock nut that went on, and then this guy went on the bottom, right? So you unscrew this lock nut, and I did need to use channel lock pliers with the lock nut, because it was on too tight for me to undo by hand. And now you get to bring this out. And I bought a universal fill valve by Moen. This toilet, I don't know who made it, but it probably wasn't Moen. And but it doesn't matter. This will do the job. And so it came just as you see here. And the cool thing about it is it's adjustable. So this little locking collar right here, it's locked in place now. It will slide up and down. I've unlocked it from that little tab, but it will not turn this way. It goes up and down, but it won't turn. And this part turns against this part. So in other words, they're not the same piece of pipe. You can spin this inside of there. Now if you look at all the graduations on this pipe, those are all adjustments. So to unlock it, I'm going to go this direction. And once it's unlocked, you can extend the height or shrink the height, which is a pretty cool feature. I've never seen that before. And so all I did was took my old one and made my new one the same length as my old one. And then I locked it in place. So now this is locked to that, and I'll put this little guy back up, and there's that. So now this and this cannot come unlocked. So your length has been set. Okay. So all I'm going to do, take off this lock nut on the bottom. And this will go in the tank. This lock nut goes on the bottom of the tank, and then my threaded hose goes on the bottom right here. You don't need to have any pipe tape or anything like that. And then to set the height, you squeeze this little yellow tab here, squeeze that, and that allows you to raise and lower this air chamber on the shut-off valve. So I think it's going to be easy to install. Let's see how that goes. Put this guy in place right here. Okay. Well, so here we are with something annoying. It seemed like it was going to be easy, but this cardboard backing is fetching up against this right here. So I need to cut out some of that cardboard insulator. I guess it probably isn't recommended to do because that keeps your tank from sweating in the summer, but I don't really have a choice. I want to make this valve work, so I'm going to cut some of that insulation out of there. Okay, so here we are. I cut the piece of styrofoam out of the way. I used a real long knife with a brand new blade, or a really sharp blade. It was really easy to cut. And I was a little worried about, hey, if I remove this, is the tank now going to sweat constantly? Well, I guess it's possible that the back part of this right here is going to be colder than the rest, and yeah, maybe it will sweat on that little spot on the back. I don't know. I'm not overly worried about it. I guess if I notice a lot of dripping in the floor, I can check there. But I'm expecting there to be enough thermal mass in the the whole tank, the ceramic or whatever this material is, to kind of, even though that part will be cold, that cold temperature will dissipate through all this thermal mass. So I'm not really expecting a cold spot right there that's going to be significant. Anyway, also the other thing too is the bottom. There's no sealant, or there's no insulation on the bottom, so I'm not worried about that. Anyway, now that I've done that, this fits in place, and that gray thing will go up and down. So I'm going to do just like I said, and I'm going to install the lock nut on the bottom and put this little doodad here, this hose, into the drain, and that hose goes in there from this area, and I'll install it just like that, and then we'll see what happens. So I'll be back in a minute. So run into a bit of difficulty with this universal fit float valve here. Problem is it didn't fit against the tank very well, so I cut all that styrofoam out of there to allow this gray thing to move up and down, which it now does. It sort of does. It's a little bit dragging on there, but whenever I tighten the nut on the bottom of this thing, it draws the valve into the bowl, like it just straightens the valve up, and now I have friction between the float, and that is absolutely not acceptable, and that will cause the tank to run and run. So that's it. Since the bottom of this float valve has a very large rubber washer at the end, instead of having the float valve like this, I'm going to put it off to the side just a wee bit to provide enough clearance for that float to go up and down. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to take a piece of the styrofoam. Before I tighten that lock nut on the bottom, I'm going to take a piece of the styrofoam and just kind of stick it right there, and I'll do a better job than I've done right here. But basically there's a piece that I'd cut out, and I'm going to put it back there to hold this away a little bit, and now look at the float, it goes up and down no problem. So I'm going to clean that up, tighten the lock bolt, and then I'll be back. Okay, well here we are. I tightened the lock nut up with an adjustable wrench, and then I just used my hand with this this guy right here. So that's the pressure line, the cold water line. And I took this little piece of styrofoam and tucked it in place behind there, so this is sufficiently held out. I guess if this was getting extreme, then it would leak underneath there. My idea of bending that, or making this not completely perpendicular to the bottom of the tank, could stress that gasket ever so slightly. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. It's a pretty big gasket over a large diameter, so we'll see how it goes. And ultimately, I gotta now fill the tank up and then set this float. So remember I told you squeeze that yellow button in like this, and then the whole float mechanism will drop. So I'm going to turn the water on now, and it's filling up through the bottom. It also has water that drips into the top of the float. I don't really know why it does that. Maybe somebody that knows could post a comment there. So put some water in the top of the float to give it some weight, and then there's some air trapped on the bottom of it. Interesting. Not sure why, but I'm sure there's a reason there somewhere. We'll see. Maybe it kind of dampens the on-off nature of the valve. I don't know. So the water is now up to the bottom of that float. I'll zoom out a bit, and at some point, I'm going to hold the camera really still. It's resting on the top of the tank now. We should see this valve turn off in a second. Okay, it just turned off. And if I push down on this, we should hear the water come in again. Yeah. So that's the height that the current tank is set to. Get any little bits of styrofoam out of there. Not that I think it matters, but well, anyway. So I'm going to now hit the flusher, see what happens. Okay, and if I find out that's not enough volume of water going down there, and it doesn't do an adequate job flushing, then, and I'll just kind of wait a few days to make that decision, I will raise this float right here, and that will put more water in the tank so that when I go to do the flush, it will be more of a larger volume of water that passes through the bulb. So there's your do-it-yourself on how to change a float fill valve on a toilet tank. It's really easy. It took me like 10 times longer to make this video, like to do it holding the camera, than it would otherwise take you. So good luck with your do-it-yourself video.